I'm Stila Webb.
And I'm Shuvom and Stila.
I'm going to write my first fiction novel this year.
And I'm going to film it.
And we're going to release one video each week.
And if you keep up with Stila's word count, by the end of 2017, you'll have...
I come along, but I don't know where you're taking me.
Alright, campers. We're talking to the survivors now, to the 10% of you that are left.
We've gone from 500 some odd views to about 50 views a video.
That means 90% of the people who made a New Year's resolution to finish their book this year have dropped away. And you, 10%, are the survivors that are left. So we're going to make these videos more interesting and deeper so you guys can finish your book this year.
And it was their mistake because from here on out, things just get more interesting. We get more into the nitty-gritty of writing.
Yeah.
And editing.
Yeah.
And publishing.
So, for those 10% who are still with us, if you guys finish your book this year, we were thinking about making up a shirt that said finisher on it. Like they have for, you know, if you want to run like a 5K, it says 5K on the back. Except ours is going to say 100K. Yeah. So if you want that shirt, let us know. We might make just like 10 copies for the 10% who are left.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah. So, let's get to the good stuff. What we're going to talk about today is going from your midpoint to your climax.
The hardest part of the book, the bad guys close in.
Okay. So, if you're keeping with us, you should have passed your midpoint, and now you want to be on a tightrope until your climax.
I'm behind and I'm at my midpoint.
Yeah. So to do that, you have to know what your climax is going to be, right?
Yeah.
You have to know what the big fight at the end is going to be. So because of this, because you have to know where the other end of the bridge is before you start building the bridge in this section, I always say plan your payoffs first. You know, even when you're starting the book, when you're getting to the midpoint, you have to plan the payoffs first. I say it so much, I even have it written on my writing board upstairs.
Yes, he does.
So, why is this section hard? Why is it hard to do the part between your midpoint and your payoff?
Overall, it's because you've done a bunch of set pieces in the fun and games, and you're like, where do I go from here? Like, I have to make up a whole bunch of new set pieces, and it kind of feels redundant, and you kind of feel like, I've already done this before, this isn't interesting anymore, this isn't exciting.
If you do it that way, yeah, it's going to be redundant.
It's tough.
But think of comedy. Comedy has a lot of fun in the fun and games section, but what are they going to do in the end section? Like, how do you, for a slapstick comedy, how do you have like a dramatic payoff? How do you build up the drama to a dramatic payoff? It's not a comedy anymore.
Yeah, it's really hard. Like, what are they going to do? You're trying to keep it funny because you want it to be a comedy, but something has to get serious. You have to be working towards a climax. So, comedies are really difficult.
Yeah. Well, how about romance? Think about a romance. The fun and games section is really fun for romance. It's light and flirty, there's a meet cute, there's a wacky friend.
They don't want to be, but then they do want to be, and then in the midpoint they have sex, and they have the culmination of their relationship, and then they have the big misunderstanding, which is the midpoint, and then they have to have some bullcrap reason why they're not talking to each other, and for some reason they can't actually talk, so that has to get worse, and then in the climax they get back together again. Right,
so you know how a climax of romance is, you just have to get there. So that's the part we're at with Stila's book. So this is kind of why you have to plan your payoffs first, because, you know, let's say you're writing a Karate Kid movie. Let's say you're writing a Karate Kid movie, and you want to have the climax take place at the All Valley Karate Tournament, right? That's where the hero and the villain are going to face off.
Right. At
the midpoint, you have to have the villain challenge the hero to the All Valley Karate Tournament. You have to put that ticking clock, like we talked about before in our Save the Cat episode.
Yeah.
So you have to put that ticking clock, and that gives you the tension, that gives you two telephone poles to stretch the wire between. Why is it Tough and Cat called?
I'm having the problem of, I introduced a minor bad guy in the fun and games, and I'm trying to figure out how to get that bad guy back in so I can quote-unquote stack my enemies. I realize I do not have a ticking clock. I have a midpoint and things happened. There's no ticking clock, so I have to add a ticking clock. I have to find one.
Okay.
I have to find one. But emotionally I'm going in the right direction, so that's good.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to beat out your bad guys close in from the midpoint to the climax, and kind of live on camera. And so you guys at home can see how it's done and apply the same lessons to your book.
Right. I've got a basic outline, like I understand some of the trajectories. It's getting the scenes themselves figured out that's what I'm getting stumped on.
Yeah, the devil's in the details.
Yeah, it really is.
So let's do it. So we got enough subscribers to finally get some good sponsorship. It'll keep the money going, keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So this week, Your book this year is sponsored by shitty adverbs.
That's right, we want to see a lot of hurried quickly, we want to see some whispered loudly, we want to see some hissed vehemently.
Want to make your sentences weaker and longer? Use some shitty adverb. Because why say sprinted when you can say ran quickly?
Yeah. Why say something with an exclamation point when you can say shouted loudly?
Shitty adverbs.
Get some.
Alright, Stila. So we're going from
Midpoint.
to...
Climax.
What's the midpoint?
Confrontation. Confrontation at the lake with Alothwin.
Right, so they confront the main villain, Sakharine, at the lake. What's the climax?
They confront him at Stonehenge.
They confront him at the gate.
Yes.
And what happens? Spoiler alert.
Brea destroys the gate, the key, and sends Bella through the gate.
Okay. So, at the midpoint, they were working together.
Yes.
At the climax, they are not.
Correct.
So, one of the running themes, move, 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 is sisters separate. And you guys out there read the book, The Story Grid? How to grid out your novel? We're going to use some of that today. What's going to happen between your heroine and the rich, handsome, mysterious billionaire that's helping them?
I would say that that relationship's going to get rocky too.
No. Or it'll get tighter.
I guess it should get tighter, shouldn't it?
You tell me.
I mean, it would be... it's the B story, so it's supposed to, isn't it? Because these two are separating, to make it more interesting, and to make it so that Brea was more separated from everybody and alone, that her relationship with Rafe would be rocky too, because she's not quite sure who to trust. And you're saying that's probably bad, and I'm now agreeing because that's the B story, so this should actually get better.
Bing!
And put more pressure on this relationship.
Bing!
Okay. Problem one solved.
So, the story grid...
This is why I have him.
The story grid tells you to rate every emotion from 1 to 10. And 11 being even more powerful than 10.
It goes to 11.
So, the fun and games section is about external actions, external conflicts, like you're fighting, fighter pilots, you're fighting a forest fire. The bad guys close in section is about internal conflicts. The external stuff is there in the background, but it's the internal simmering disputes that kind of come to the fray. Okay? So, sisters separate. 11 would be the sisters like trying to kill each other with knives, right?
Not at that level.
Well, 1 would be they're happy, they're lovey-dovey sisters. They start the book at 1.
Right.
So the point of the bad guys close-in section is to kind of go from like a 5, to a 7, and then at the climax, they're at a 10 or an 11. You can have at least 3 points will kind of show the progression. We talked about the rule of 3s for comedy, but you can see the progression here. You can't go from a 5 to an 11, that would be crazy. But if you go from a 5 to a 7, you're like, oh no, it's getting worse. And then it's logical to go from a 7 to a 10 or 11.
Right, yeah, I can see
Okay,
that.
so what is the situation at the midpoint?
They're just starting to separate at this point,
Well,
so...
Be more specific. What happened? Pause it. So the bad guys close-in section, the reason it's hard is you can't get specific. So we're going to be about showing what things happen. So how are you going to show the sisters separating through this? How are they at the midpoint? How are you going to show the tension just starting to fray? It's a 5 out of 10.
They're not at odds just yet.
Alright, they're at a 5.
They're not even at a 5.
Okay, what are they
They're
at?
working together. They were literally just working together in the midpoint.
So they're at a 1. They're strong.
Yeah. Things are about to go south.
Okay, that's good. So you need a scene where they go from like a 1 to a 5, and I think that could be like a father being killed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of what it's going to be.
Right. So again, the point they talk about in Story Grid is your scene should change these numbers. Like a scene that makes it static is a pointless scene. So when the father is killed, you gotta show something about Bella and Brea disagreeing. Like Bella tries to do something or whatever, they disagree, and that takes them to a 5. What are some scenes you could have in the middle that show Bella and Brea getting more separated? How could you show that?
Well, they'll have an argument
Okay.
about what they're supposed to do.
Okay, so this is maybe like a 5, you know, to a 6 or something. What's the argument about?
It's going to be Bella the twin wants Brea, the main character, to give Alothwin the key to get the mother back.
So now, here's the interesting thing. What's going to take it from like a 6 to a we don't trust Bella at all, like a 9 or a 10? To get her mother back.
Right.
So that takes the emotion of sisters separate from a 6 to a 10.
Yep.
Okay. And then it makes sense, you know, you can either have it go up or down at the climax. So the cool thing about the story grid, in the book it says, at the climax of your book, you can have it go from like a 10 to 11, like they hate each other and they're bitter enemies, or you can have it go from like a 10 to a 3, like they come back together. Either way is valid for a book, as long as there's change.
Yeah.
So you got that. Okay. Rafe. So how is the situation with Rafe at the pinpoint? So this has to also go from like a 5 to a 10, I'm guessing, right? They've already kissed.
They've kissed. It's not going to go to a 10 in this book. That doesn't make any sense for this one. There's no sex in this book. That doesn't make any sense. I would say a 3, because Brea's not quite sure what to do with the situation yet. She hasn't really had a time to think about it.
But in the climax, he comes in at the last minute and provides some support and saves him, right?
Yeah.
So that's like a 8.
Yeah. I would say that because this relationship is fraying, this relationship will get stronger.
Okay. You know what? Oh, you know what would be really cool?
What?
This is the magic of the story grid. This starts off at a 3.
Mm-hmm.
When this gets worse, you just said this gets better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is when Rafe is a solid guy. Like he's like, oh man, I'm a solid 8. He's a good guy.
That's an awfully long way. That's getting too close to 10. Okay.
But to make this interesting, instead of this going from 8 to 10, what if this went from 8 to 5 or 8 to 6?
Oh.
Rafe does something a little bit dastardly, a little bit for his own interests.
Yeah, that would actually make sense because she's going to find something out about what he did. He's going to know something that he doesn't tell her.
Yeah.
That she'll figure out here, which is, yeah.
Okay, so that'll be a 6. So this is the beauty of the story grid system, and we'll link to it in the description. If all of these went from 1 to 11 all together, that's melodrama. That's like they're trying to, it's so corny and cheesy.
Everything always gets more, yeah.
Right, but if you weave them together, up and down, this gets better while this gets worse, but then this gets worse, 8 to 6 instead of 8 to 11, then you have some texture to your book. Okay.
Makes sense, yeah. I like
So,
that.
here Rafe is kind of along for the ride, he's providing money. How does he go from a 3, yeah, how does he go from a 3 to a 5 or 3 to an 8? You can do it in one step or two.
That's a good question.
I would say, right after the father's killed, a 3 to 5 scene is Rafe comforting them. Or at least one of them.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, you
see
know,
that.
poor baby. Little blanket, some hot cocoa.
Yeah, he does do that.
Alright, so that's a 3 to a 5. That's Rafe comforts.
Without sexual overtones.
Oh, there's going to be overtones.
Right, but not from... There's a way that women can tell when a guy is being legitimately concerned for her and when he's doing it to try to get sex.
Okay.
So he's going to do it in such a way that doesn't seem like he's trying to get sex.
Alright. What takes Rafe from a good guy to a solid, lifelong, trusted partner? Like, I would trust this guy with my life. A 5 to an 8.
So Rafe has to tell Brea she got herself into a bargain with the Fae, and it's affecting how she sees reality, so she can no longer be trusted.
So the cool part about this is I'm going to stagger them in time, and you can actually kind of see that they're going to have an argument, but when she's down from this, Rafe's going to come in and be like, I got something you need to see.
Yeah?
You should take a look at this.
You need to see this. Ding!
What's Rafe going to do in the climax to make him less trustworthy? Well, how he's going to act in his own interest that takes him from an 8 to a 6. One last thread we need running through here. We'll have a couple more threads. So Brea starts off just a normal, everyday cat shifter,
Yep.
and ends up unleashing her power. So we need a thread here where her power goes from like a 3 to an 11, and then down to 7. So I'm going to put Brea power.
I actually had that just happen a little bit.
Okay, good. So her power is, again, kind of a 3, and in the climax, squishy squishy, it has to be an 11 because she can't control it. It's off the chart. It goes to 11.
It blows up, yeah.
So Brea power goes from a 3 to an 11. So the 11, we already know, is her losing control and
blowing everything up.
But just like you guys at home, if you went straight from a 3 to an 11, it wouldn't make any sense. You'd be like, where'd she get all this power? How did Rey Skywalker learn how to use the Force? She didn't know, and all of a sudden now she's beating people in lightsaber duels. She's a Skywalker.
I hope not. No, that's later.
So...
Okay, let me break it down for you.
So just picture this in your mind, how for a reader.
Put what on the card?
The foreshadow. What is the scene of show foreshadowing?
She breaks the circle.
Okay. 3 is her turning into cats and being somewhat powerful and knowing that her mom's a witch. 11 is her going crazy and ripping open the key indicates.
I don't even know what we were doing.
He knows that she's whipping things around and destroying the house.
She's not destroying the house. What are you talking about?
That's the whole point, is you said she was destroying the house. Okay, we might have stopped the video. I don't
what?
know.
What are you talking about?
Now I don't know what's going on.
I don't either.
I come along, but I don't know where you're taking me. I shouldn't go, but you're reaching, dragging, shaking me. Turn off the sun, pull the stars from the sky. The more I give to you, the more I die. And I want you. And I want you. And I want.
Okay.
Alright, we got it.
We figured it out.
So, how long... We were upstairs arguing about this. How long do we take a break for, Kitty?
About a half hour.
Of just pure trying to figure out what was wrong here. What was wrong was, we couldn't figure out what the villains were doing. Alright? The bad guys closing section is driven by the villains. Hence the name, the bad guys are closing in. So the problem was, our villain had too many choices.
Yeah.
The villain wanted the key to open the gate.
Right.
So he could kill the main characters with a bomb and take the key.
He could have, didn't think of that.
He could have people sneak in and kill them in their sleep and take the key. He could trick them and take the key. He could send pieces of the mom back and bargain with her mom, take the key.
Yep.
But that's too many choices.
Way too many choices.
So if you're having trouble in your bad guys close-in section, put yourself in the villain's mindset. What would the villain do next? So the midpoint confrontation didn't work. The reason the second confrontation will work is we changed one of the magic rules, which is...
Now the key has to be given freely.
Right.
They can't just take it. Otherwise, yeah, why not just snipe them from a hill 50 yards away?
So with that one small change, we give the villain a clear path. The villain can't just blow them up with a tank and take the key. The key has to be given freely. So the villain has to increase the pressure and make the heroes come to them. Right?
Yep.
So my suggestion so that was a change in the magic system we realized we needed. My suggestion is for the villain to start mailing pieces of their mom back. First they get some hair, then they get her locket, then they get a pinky finger.
Yeah.
Right? You like that idea?
No, but it's a good one.
Alright.
It works in this instance because now he has a reason not to just go after them. It makes more sense. It really does.
Right,
And it's a good, useful trope that has been used many times in fantasy for good reason. Which is the other thing I was fighting against, because I cannot stand it when characters do stupid things just for the plot. So there's got to be a good reason why they're making those choices. And forcing it to be about the key being freely given means he's not making stupid choices. He's working within how reality works.
Yeah. So we're not going to go through all the logic of what happens next or how we got there. But for you at home, if you're having trouble with the bad guys closing section, put yourself in the villain's shoes, right? What would they do? The villain probably has too many choices.
It's an option. Yeah.
So, ironically, if you give some restrictions, the villain's path becomes very clear, and that drives the bad guys close in. So, we put a restriction on off camera after 20 minutes, 30 minutes of arguing. That makes the villain's path very clear, that the heroes have to come to him, and then use the story grid technique of every scene should be either taking emotion up a few notches or down, and weave them together. They don't just all go up at the same time.
Yeah, play with the relationships. Get the relationships to ebb and flow to motivate the characters in the direction you want them to go.
Yeah, again, you're looking for something that looks like, kind of like, again, like a... It's always going in a certain direction, but it's ebbing and flowing. If you just have it go straight there, that's boring. If you have it go every single way, that's confusing. You want the readers to be able to figure out the pattern. That's, I think, what we've got. We've got a pattern of the team is getting more frayed, Brea's power is growing, but the pieces of the mom is getting in more and more danger.
And this is your ticking clock right here. This finally gives me a ticking clock, which is what we needed in the second half anyway, and I knew I was missing that and I couldn't figure out how to get it there.
Okay. Right, so your homework this week is plot this out on your own, put a stake in the ground at your midpoint, put a stake in the ground at your climax, and then you're going to string some rope between them. Each of your themes that you need to heighten or lower is a rope, and figure out what it does.
Sounds good to me. I've done it. Your turn.
Yeah. So, until then, get plotting.
Wang.
Done. Enough.
All right.
Finish. Fin.
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 Fin.